Excellent. Can you all hear me? Yes, excellent. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much on behalf of my colleagues and on behalf of Accenture. Thank you all for attending. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak. I apologize for not speaking in Greek, and if I speak too fast in English, please let me know. If you have questions, please raise your hand, dive in. It makes it a lot more interesting up here. There's a perfect storm that's just brewing at the moment. The world is changing, and the world's changing very fast. We've got the speed of markets, things that are changing around the world, happening very fast. We've got hyper-personalized experiences. How many of you have ordered trainers from Nike? You can personalize your trainer, you can have them made in your color with your name delivered to you. They're delivered from the internet to you, you can track your package. That's become the new norm. That's what people are expecting in terms of a user experience. And all of those systems are connected together. That's a part of what Industry X.0 is all about. If you look at the means of funding for a project, crowdsourcing. 10 years ago, who would have said anything about crowdsourcing? It wasn't something we'd ever thought about. Just giving. Maybe you go out to some hedge capitalists or venture funding. These days, crowdsourcing, you can ask people to contribute to something that they're interested in. And as will be covered later, virtual testing. You don't have to test the real article. You can test it virtually. You can do computer simulations. So there's a whole raft of things that are coming together at this point in time. And yet we are still in a manufacturing base that was developed 40, 50 years ago. We're still doing things the same way as we did them last year, last decade. Interesting. If you go onto a website these days, quite often a little box pops up and it says, would you like to chat? It's not a person you're talking to, it's a chatbot. $58 million of funding just to go into chatbots. If you look at artificial intelligence, 12.5 billion. It's a huge amount of money that's being spent. 6.4 billion devices connected to the internet. Interesting fact, and looking at people with mobile phones, last year alone, there were 119 exabytes of data that were generated just by mobile devices. What does that mean? That means if you take your favorite record, tape, track, and you record it in the highest definition, you could listen to 906,000 years worth of that track, because that's how much data was generated just using mobile devices. And in terms of processing power, the top 500 computers in the world currently have 672 with 15 zeros after it, floating point operations per second capacity. So computers are evolving, data is evolving. It's a very changing world. And if you start to look at the evolution, you'll see that the internet has changed. We have artificial intelligence. We have self-driving cars. We have companies like Amazon. Amazon's been around for 24 years now. Look at Jeff Bezos. Look at the ability. My son last week turned 18. At dinner, he ordered a set of headphones. That was at 8 o'clock. At 10 past 10, Amazon had delivered those headphones to him. The whole commerce, the ability to shift money and products is changing around us. And we are right on the cusp of quantum computing. And what quantum computing will give you is huge possibilities to turn around even more calculations. So there's a lot going on all at the same time. Various people are saying things. They're saying things like, no, my core business is changing, others are making money. We recently, as Accenture, did a survey, and it was a case of, can you afford not to invest in digital? Because your competitors most certainly are. There's a whole ecosystem. How are you connected to your suppliers? What is the communication between you? How versatile are they? Are they adopting digital? Can they support you in the needs that you have? And these are all questions and challenges which are facing industry leaders, people like you, and they're happening all around the world. So can you imagine Can you imagine if everything was 10 times better, 10 times bigger even? Things like the ability to research, to plan, design, your infrastructure, your engineering, if all of these things were 10 times better. And the thing is that in the current environment, they can be, they are, and there are people who are doing it. We can cite examples. Nike is one, Amazon is another. If you even look back, going back to 2001, 17 years ago, Twin Towers, 9/11, and Walmart had a connected industrial system. They were looking at their stores, their consumption, and as the stars and stripes were going out the door as a mark of solidarity against the terrorist attacks, they ordered more stars and stripes, and they met the demand. As a result, they absolutely nailed Kmart. And so the ability to be versatile, he who has the best digital strategy wins. It's very simple. And the tools are there to start connecting all of these dots, to bring in different points of view, to bring in your consumers, to start to design better products, design them faster, test them faster, manufacture them flawlessly, and get them out to customers when they want them. This is the core of what Industry X.0 is all about. So you might be saying, we're not getting the right product out on time. But what if you could realize a 2 to 4% increase in revenue, 10 to 20% faster product launch? Would that be interesting? What would that be worth to you? What about the right technologies? What if you could make your workforce safer and reduce time at the workplace, get things done more effectively? What would that be worth to you? And I'll cite some examples, give you some examples of that later on. What about new revenue models? Some of you may have heard that there are products as a service. There are now, in America, options of fueling as a service. So why go and waste time at a fuel station? Hyper-personalized fueling experiences. So companies like BP are now pioneering an approach where you drive onto the forecourt, cameras look at the tyre depth, the depth of tread on your tyre, because they recognize you, they recognize the registration of your car. They will actually send you offers for local tyre manufacturers if your tyre grip is too low. Hyper-personalized value-added services. The next step is, I don't have the time, so get the fuel to come to you. Pay a premium for someone to actually fuel your car for you. All of this is a different way. It's like going back to the days of the horse and cart. Henry Ford didn't invent a better horse. He completely changed the market. And that's what we're going through, except we're doing this in a faster cycle. So why do we call it Industry X.0? Well, we've been through the first industrial revolution, then we went through the second, where we had electrical energy. Then we've gone through the third, where there's been automation and robotics. We've come to the four, where we've got physical, we've got cyber systems, we've got robotics. But then the fifth generation, the fifth industrial revolution is artificial intelligence, the application of quantum computing. And the evolution of technology is such that if we now start saying, well, it's actually Industry 4.1, 4.2, 4.5, 5.1, so we just call it X.0 because the technology is advancing at such a rate. And we have Moore's law, which is saying that the ability of computers to double every 10 years. They get smaller, they get faster, they get cheaper. Except that's happening faster and faster and faster. So we reflect on Industry X.0 because a lot of tomorrow's technology is actually happening today. We recently worked on a project with a hydrocarbon manufacturer and the application of artificial intelligence. And it's the ability of the artificial intelligence to take data, to actually look at that data, to learn from the data, and then to teach itself when it's underperforming. So it's not just a case of, oh, we can take inputs and give outputs. It learns, it adapts, it predicts. And that's an Industry X.0 tool. How you find uses for it and the problems you have in your industry is another question. I apologize, that's in English, but I'll let you have a read. Can you guys at the back see that, by the way? Is that all? You okay? Okay. Have you all read? Okay. So really, it's about the innovation and the growth and the underpinning of digital enablers. And you'll hear lots of talk in industry, if you're on LinkedIn, if you look at the internet, things like the industrial Internet of Things. And it's about any one of those. It's about artificial intelligence, robotic process automation. It's about data visualization. It's about access to data. It's about the ability to change where you're putting your processing power. A few years ago, a mobile phone was just a communication device. Now it is your office, your best friend, it is your assistant, it is a means of communicating with the world. A few years ago, no one had heard of Facebook, but now technologies like Facebook are being applied to industrial equipment. If you're a maintenance technician, you want to be friends with all the pumps and the rotating equipment because they're going to tell you when they're feeling under the weather. And that's the future. That's what Industry X.0 is all about. And it's those concepts. We take ideas and we turn them into something that adds value, the ability to friend equipment. Sounds kind of weird, but if you'd said 10 years ago that you'd sit here using a device to take pictures, use GPS, book you in for flights, and get you through borders or even pay for things, would you have believed that was possible? So what we focus on is really then the concept of new experiences, problems that can be solved, and how we can apply that technology. And the key thing that our customers are finding the understanding of the workforce and talent that you have. Problems that are being solved now are problems that we never saw 10 years ago. We are developing a workforce now who is completely used to instability in work, technology changing at an evolving rate. They realize that what they start doing today, in 2 years' time, they're probably going to be doing something completely different. So we have a whole series of different work models and business models that are evolving over time. And Industry X.0 is harnessing those and applying them to the good of the business. Really understanding about smarter products, embedded solutions. Now, what are smarter products? I have a connected house. It means that wherever I am in the world, I can look at my house, I can look at what's going on in my house, I can turn the heating on or off. When I drive home from the airport, the system says, you're coming back, I'll turn the heating on, so you come back to a house that's warm. It's this kind of connected approach. What about if you take out all of the silos where humans are involved in communications and planning and start to get machines to talk to each other, with humans adding the value in between? And this is what Industry X.0 is really all about. And there'll be various examples given today that hopefully you can build from. So as Accenture, we like to do various surveys. And basically, transforming the business, according to a lot of C-level people, is a key driver. All of them are interested in changing what they do. The mere fact that you're here indicates that you are interested in that approach. But 64% also agree that if they fail to do something, their tenure is not likely to last. So it's a case of change. I want to change. If I don't change, the business isn't going to survive. But more importantly, there's only about 13% of the companies that are actually trying at the moment and really succeeding in applying these technologies and changing their business. Because it's about both changing what you do, but still supporting what you do as well. You can't just change from what I do now to a whole new business model. You've got to change slowly and wisely and do that in a sustainable way. And that's one of the key challenges. So that's one of the things to bear in mind when you look at some of these success stories today. And there are 6 steps, and in the interest of time, I will skip over these fairly quickly. But basically, the first step is transforming the core. So, looking at the correct digital strategy, what are you going to apply across your business? Why are you going to apply it? What is the problem that it's going to solve? And working with a customer recently, very technologically advanced. They have a team that looks at their operational technology, their industrial, their IT. They're looking at the conjunction of the two. They're looking at cybersecurity. They've got a whole team of people who are mobilized and looking at what they can do. And they said, but the biggest issue we've got is we don't know what problem to solve. We don't know where to start. How do we transform this business? And their business has been producing oil. And the ability to produce oil has gone way back 100+ years. It's stayed the same. It's in the ground. You take it out. How do they transform that business and really apply digital technology? And they're struggling, so it's not an easy step to make. But the first step is really, what is it that you want to change? How are you going to integrate this into your business? The second step is, how are you going to engage people? So if you are supplying goods to a customer, how do you make that experience more enjoyable? How do you make them want to come back? And some of the work that we've seen is that customers, or suppliers, should I say, even on the sales cycle, are trying to make things more engaging. How do I get loyalty cards? How do I recognize this customer? How do I get offers specific to them so that I can actually get more business out of them or make them feel that they're getting a better deal at the end of the day? So how do I personalize this? What is it that I want to achieve with this technology, and what's the outcome? So it's really using big data, using analytics, using the information. And data is becoming more and more relevant. Getting that data chain right and using the right technology, of course, is also important. Understanding what's the provenance of your data, how relevant is it, and how much of that do I then use to drive a hyper-personalized experience. Re-architecting. It's a whole new world in terms of infrastructure. What do you put in the cloud? What do you make scalable? What do you put close to a process or a manufacturing system? How much do you leave embedded in phones? What mobile devices? Do you engage people with a wearable experience? So what's this new ecosystem going to look like? And what I'll present later on is about some of the wearables and how people become either connected to the process or have the process feeding them information and the value that it adds. Finding new business models. So if you'd said 23 years ago that Amazon would become one of the biggest companies on the planet, who would have believed you? If you'd have said that you can order things and have them in your hand, you can order your own trainers. It used to be a case of there's green, there's black, there's white, you buy the size that fits. Now everything is turned on its head. There's a business model that's being floated that if you have an electric car and you're not driving very far, you can actually use your car to charge somebody else's car so that they can go on a different distance. So you're starting to use your car as a means of making money. How would that all be handled? Using blockchain. So you start to use a distributed ledger system to actually support a business model for a whole transportation system that never used to exist 10 years ago. So there are ways of making money. And my oldest son makes money by playing games. And he plays a game online. He broke his phone, so he wanted to get himself a Google Pixel 2. Best phone on the market, apparently. To make money, he plays this game, builds up his profile, then sells his services so that people can play against him. He can elevate them in the rankings, and they pay him to do that. So he plays a game, and he's found money. It's a completely novel business model. And I was taught that if you want money, you do a job. He plays a game and makes more money than I ever did at that age. It's a brave new world. Building the workforce. I used to consider myself to be young, but the ability to train a workforce to do what you need, the flexibility and fluidity, the skills that are required in a generation now. A lot of knowledge, a lot of information can be embedded into artificial intelligence and into the actual system. So what are you going to train your people to do? What value-added tasks are they going to do? How do you re-engineer that workforce? And these are all considerations to have. They are all fully achievable, but it's just not an easy journey. And then actually maintaining this, the wise pivot. So how you start to transform the business, where you put the money, how you start to spend it, and how you start to change to this new, streamlined, industrial, digital, Industry X.0 business. And this is really the core of the presentation, and I think that there will be examples that we'll cite where people have actually achieved this and the benefits that stand with them. So I'm going to pause at that point because I've rocketed through the slides. Any questions at that point? Thoughts, relevance, interesting? Come on, it's boring up here. Okay, have I hit the right notes? Interesting so far? Okay. Right. So, corrosion management. Corrosion is an issue. It's a big issue if you're in hydrocarbon industry, manufacturing industry, rust. It happens. Both chemical corrosion, erosion, loss of material, loss of containment, loss of strength. It's a big issue. We work with different customers, and there are 5 customers that I can cite at the moment who have corrosion issues. And as an introduction, I'm a chemical engineer. I've been working in the industry for 28 years, and corrosion on pipelines is a big issue. You have carbon steel pipelines, they run all over the place, and you put stuff through them. You design a process plant with supporting structures and vessels made of carbon steel, typically. And you build in a corrosion allowance. You expect a certain amount of material to be lost every year to rust. And then we also have the added complication of insulation. So some of these pipes lose heat, so we wrap them in nice rock wool and put steam tracing with copper pipes or electrical. And typically the copper pipes eventually perforate, so you get steam leaks, which means that you get nice wet blankets wrapped around a nice steel pipeline. So you get corrosion. The trouble is that it's underneath insulation. So how do you know where that is? And if you looked at, for example, some of the oil production sites, you might have a 600-mile pipeline. So you can send people out to go and check your pipeline, but 600 miles of it, and you've got to look at up high, down low, underground. How do you check where there are holes? And it's very difficult. And when you've got people walking around a plant, they see corrosion. How about if you actually connected those people so they could take pictures and you could perform analytics on that? You could get some useful information out of it. And that's the problem we face. And if you do a search for corrosion under insulation or loss of containment, you'll find that quite a few refineries have had pinhole leaks. You get a gas cloud, and then it's a small matter of an explosion. Damage to infrastructure, reputational damage, loss of containment, and worse still, possibly, loss of life. So these are the problems that we face. And it's a problem of chemistry. So what we've been working on is, it's a, $2.5 trillion that it costs the industry. We've been working on this saying, how can we actually predict better and do analytics on corrosion? So with data, and it starts again around big data, getting the information on pipelines, on the material, the metallurgy of the pipelines, looking at historical performance, actually taking analysis, so 3D monitoring, looking at laser scans, but also taking pictures of the corrosion, looking at failed pipelines, so learning from the historical data, and then applying artificial intelligence and analytics to that. And what it means is that with a few data sets, we worked with one oil supplier, and we were able to predict with around a 99% accuracy where they would have corrosion under their insulation. So looks very nice, shiny pipeline from the outside. Inside, you've got holes and you're going to have a leak. So that's not bad. But then also having operators with some of the ATEX certified devices who, going out and doing a round, they see a patch of rust or corrosion. They take a picture of it, upload that, and the analytics comes back and says, you know what, that spool piece is going to fail in so many weeks or months. Now is the time to start planning to replace that. At the next turnaround, put a new piece of pipe in there. And this is the ability of analytics, mobile devices, and artificial intelligence to really draw upon historical data and solve a problem that is universal. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you have got steel, you have got metal out there, it will corrode. If you look at, everyone always cites in the UK the Forth Bridge, very big bridge that goes across a river, well, estuary in Scotland. And they have a painting program. And the guys start painting it, and when they finish, they start all over again and do it. Why? Because it's salt water, and it's steel, and it corrodes. This is what we're fixing here. And overall, the benefits that were applied, it was uptime, productivity, greater than 10%. We prevented the leaks from causing a problem, shutting process units down. Overall, it reduced the cost of inspection by about 10%. And what we've now seen is that a number of companies are now coming out and saying we actually are engaging and embarking on a journey where we want to be able to predict our corrosion. So this is one area where the application of analytics to a problem, we can change the whole model. This is not something that 10 years ago we'd have been able to achieve. Now we can use the technology to drive that improvement in safety and performance. But there's a video that I will now show. Oh yeah, sorry, forgot this one. This is where we actually take the scan of the plant. So we can actually dive into the 3D model, augment this with scans. So you do a laser scan of your plant. And then what you can start to look at with the predictive analytics and subsequent scans is to do the analytics on the performance and the difference in the thicknesses and the corrosion that you've got between sequential scans of your process equipment. So you can then visualize where it is, what it is, and the severity of it. Some examples we've also used, flare stacks. For those of you not in the hydrocarbon industry, big, tall stacks that you have flame at the top, and if everything goes horribly wrong, you stick the hydrocarbon up there and you burn it safely. Not a nice place to be, not good things to inspect, but vitally important. Difficult to get people up there because you have to shut down everything, so there's no danger of that flare actually being active. But we have drones with high-definition cameras, so we can fly a disposable piece of equipment up, take high-definition pictures, and do an inspection of equipment that is mission-critical. What does it mean? It means that we don't have to put people in harm. We don't have to shut down the process. But anyway, let me move you on to the video.
These are your operations.
Carrying oil, natural gas, water or waste. They are essential to your business. But under constant
Wear and tear, these critical pathways can be a weak link in your infrastructure if not efficiently maintained. Corrosion is a challenge. Untreated, it can lead to leaks, system malfunctions, equipment failures, unplanned outages, and health and safety issues. On the other hand, most inspection programs rely on manual inspection and traditional techniques, missing signs of corrosion or pushing the limits of budgets and maintenance staff by focusing resources in the wrong place at the wrong time. You're already doing inspections, but imagine that you could apply digital technologies in innovative ways to move beyond reactive inspection and maintenance into predictive corrosion management. Now, what if we told you that these new technologies and strategies could significantly reduce the cost of asset management while increasing uptime, productivity, and asset integrity by more than 10%? Accenture's corrosion management solutions combine our extensive industry experience and technical expertise with new technologies and leading digital strategies to realize a step change in the management of your assets and operations. Cutting-edge technologies combined with leading maintenance strategies help you achieve smarter, safer inspections and more connected digital operations. Using advanced analytics and data visualization, you can accurately predict risk and carry out targeted inspections at the right time and in the right place. Analysis of video from drones and fixed cameras gives you easy access and reliable information about hazardous or remote areas, reducing the need for manual inspections and limiting risk. 3D modeling and image analysis automatically pinpoints potential corrosion. And using the latest inspection techniques, you can carry out inspections without taking your system offline or damaging pipe in the process. Accenture's corrosion management solutions empower you to make cost-effective, reliable and actionable decisions. Embrace digital innovation and move beyond reactive maintenance and inspection into tomorrow's predictive corrosion management.
Okay, so that's the point that I end my use case for the moment and I get off the stage. So I think we are exactly on schedule. Are there any questions at this point? Any comments, any feedback? No? Okay.
Thank you, Andy, for the presentation.